So I'm going to start, even knowing that academics will show up a little bit later. Welcome everybody to this session that's part of the arXiv Accessibility Forum. The session is focused on AI and accessibility, and I'm really excited to have these 5 panelists with us today to talk about 2 very interesting tools that they are working on right now. First, just a few notes. My name is Shamsi Brin. I work at arXiv doing user experience and design, and it's been my privilege and my pleasure to help pull together these forums and sessions with so many wonderful panelists. And thank you so much for joining us. The second thing I wanted to share is that these sessions, we're not only talking about accessibility, we want to make the sessions themselves as accessible as we can. And so there's a few differences that you might notice about these sessions. One of them is that the chat is disabled. And that is because Zoom chat is noisy and disruptive for screen reader users. Every time you type something, it immediately announces to the screen reader, and you can imagine that would make it very difficult to follow along with what's actually happening in the event. So we have chat turned off. We'll be using it very sparingly on our end, just to share a few links during this intro section, and then the chat should remain quiet during the rest of the meeting. But what we do have turned on is the Q&A tab. That's also part of the Zoom navigation. And as you're listening to the panelists, please feel free to share your questions in that tab. We'll be collecting questions over the breaks so that we can try and answer as many of them as we can during the Q&A session at the end. So do feel free to use that tab. It's not disruptive for screen readers in the same way. Another thing we wanted to share is that we have volunteers who are taking notes in a public Google document. And these are just a quick reference in case you had to walk away and came back, or you just want to follow along with those written notes. And we're going to share that link in the chat. One of our arXiv assistants is going to post that there. So if anyone wants to follow along, you can just open up that Google document. There's also a discussion board on the web page for this session, and that's a great place to start side conversations or to pose questions. And everybody, please feel free to chime in and answer those questions. That discussion board is totally open. And the one last thing that I wanted to mention is that our pacing for this session is going to be a little bit slower, a little more deliberate. Taking time and not having the fire hose of information coming at us is good for everybody's learning. And it's really essential when you have interpretation, which we do at all of these sessions. And we're also going to be taking 2 breaks. So we'll have our intros, and then we'll take a break and we'll have a panel discussion. We'll take our second and last break, and we'll have open Q&A. I hope that everyone has had a chance to review the demo videos about the 2 tools. If you have not, we're going to post those 2 links in the chat as well. And take a look when you can. They're very interesting, and they take a deeper dive into each of these tools than we're going to do today. Today, we're actually going to build on what was shared in those videos. But they're very interesting. I hope everyone gets a chance to look at them. And now we're going to move right into introductions. And I'll just call on people because it's impossible to tell what the circle is in Zoom. So I'll just call on folks, and please share your introduction. Allie, would you go first?
Yes. Hi, my name is Allie Zombron, and I'm a 4th-year student at James Madison University. I'm in the Integrated Science and Technology program under the College of Integrated Science and Engineering. I'm here today. I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to improve accessibility in STEM education.
Thank you so much. Thijs, would you go next?
Yeah, so my name is Thijs Roumen. I'm a professor at Cornell Tech in New York City in the Department of Information Science and Computer Science. I'm working primarily on computational fabrication. I've been building different forms of hardware for also accessibility and for other use cases. And I'm very fortunate to work together with Ricky right now on a project that he will talk a lot more about in his introduction, I'm sure.
Thanks, Thijs. Arwa, would you go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Arwa Alnajashi. I'm a data scientist at Saudi Aramco, and I'm currently studying data science and AI at King's College London. I'm really passionate about AI and accessibility given my lived experience, and I'm here to share my perspective in this topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Arwa. Raafat, would you go next?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Raafat Zaini. I'm an assistant professor at James Madison University, the Integrated Science and Technology program. And I'm very passionate about accessibility. When AI came, I thought this AI came to the rescue to help us scale and expand. And I'm working currently with Allie on the project that we will be talking about today. I'm happy to be here with everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, Raafat. Ricky.
Well, last but not least, hello everyone. My name is Ricky Gonzalez, and I am a PhD candidate in the Information Science Department at Cornell University. And like Thijs said before, I have been collaborating with him and my other advisor, Professor Shiri Asenkat, in figuring out how to create more intelligent systems to access visual information. I am mainly interested in working with people that are blind and people who have vision loss. But recently I have also been collaborating with Thijs on other projects related to AI making jokes too. So that's also very interesting there.
Thanks so much, Ricky. So next, I'm really excited to be hearing from Arwa, who's going to share with us some information about her lived experience using AI as an accessibility tool. And I'm also going to ask one of our assistants if they could hide the videos of the other panelists. One of the things that we're going to be trying to do during this talk is manage the screen real estate to always keep the ASL interpreter as large as possible, even in gallery view. So we'll see how that goes, and leave myself and the interpreter and Arwa, of course. And Arwa, I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much for sharing your lived experience with us.
Thank you, Shamsi. Well, hi again, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to be talking about a topic that is not just close to my heart, but also has touched on many people's life, AI and accessibility. As a visually impaired computer scientist, my journey with technology has not been straightforward. It has been challenging yet rewarding. Today, I want to share with you the power of artificial intelligence and how this is redefining accessibility, not just as a concept, but as a lived experience. I grew up with a passion for technology and a curiosity to understand how things work and the desire to build solutions that can make a difference. However, navigating the world of technology wasn't always easy. I often found myself in situations that weren't built with my needs in mind. For instance, I popped into websites that didn't support screen readers, websites that were overwhelmed with visual content, and software that expected everyone to interact with the computer with the keyboard and mouse, with the mouse and the screen. However, this didn't discourage me. It fueled my determination to make a difference. My perspective as both an end user and a developer of technology has given me unique insights into the limitations and possibilities of the technologies, especially AI. I've experienced firsthand how accessibility can transform a tool from being completely unusable to being an extension of my capabilities. And now, with the advancements of AI, we're seeing a revolution. They're seeing a revolution that has the potential to make the world a more inclusive place for everyone. Accessibility. So what is really accessibility? Accessibility is about creating an environment, products and services that can be used by everyone regardless of their abilities. It's not just about compliance with laws and regulations. It's about empathy, inclusivity, and the fundamental belief that everyone deserves equal access to the digital and physical world. For too long, people with disability were marginalized. Their needs were overlooked. But this is changing with AI. AI has the potential to bridge gaps that were once impossible. By leveraging machine learning, natural language processing, and computer vision, AI can create personalized software that can cater to individualized needs, from AI-powered screen readers to automatic transcription to AI-assisted technology. Well, this is all sounds good, but the potential of AI in accessibility is really vast. It is important to acknowledge the challenges and ethical considerations that comes with AI. AI systems are only as good as the data you feed it. So if you feed imbalanced biased data, you will end up with an imbalanced system. For example, if we have a system that recognizes people with abilities, it will struggle to recognize people with disabilities and might fail to recognize them or even classify them. However, there is also an issue with privacy. Assistive technology requires confidential data such as location data and also medical records. It is crucial that we protect the user's data and also give them control over how this data is being used. As we continue to innovate, we must do so with a commitment to inclusivity and fairness. This means involving people with disability in the design and development phases. It also means advocating for transparency in AI so users can understand how these systems work and trust them. Looking ahead, the future of AI and accessibility is incredibly promising. We are moving to a world where technology is not just a tool, but an extension of our abilities. A world where the barriers between people and information are being dismantled by AI, allowing everyone to participate fully in society. As a visually impaired computer scientist, I am both a beneficiary and a creator of these technologies. I've experienced the profound impact that accessible technology can make in people's lives. And I am committed to advocate this appeal to others so others can benefit. In conclusion, AI is not just a buzzword or a futuristic thing. It is a powerful tool that is transforming the world we live in. For people with disability, AI represents hope, empowerment, and independence. But with great power comes great responsibility. We must ensure that the AI systems we build are designed with empathy, fairness, and inclusivity at their core. As we continue to explore the possibilities of AI, let us do so with a vision of a world where accessibility is not an afterthought, but a fundamental principle, a world where technology truly serves all the humanity, regardless of their ability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arwa. That was a marvelous introduction into really the core of this session. And I would like to shift over to the brief video clips that we're planning to share next. We're going to play just a small clip from the 2 demonstration videos that were pre-recorded and shared with the audience through the chat to lay the foundation for the panel discussion to follow. So I'm going to be sharing my screen and playing a little clip from each. Just give me a moment while I cue it up. All right, the first clip that we're going to play is from the tool that Ricky Gonzalez is working on with Thijs. And I'll hit play here.
I took a photo of a very nice article shared by our folks at arXiv. And so in this photo, we have the example of someone trying to look for some graphical information. And here we have a figure that explains to other researchers how to make figures accessible. And we can see that the application describes this image as a stacked bar chart used to filter data on the right side with different textures and colors to represent information. So then we kind of ask the application to explain the chart values and the point of the chart. And then it's able to give a general idea of what is going on in the chart. So it mentions that the bar chart has these distinct patterns and colors. So the patterns are helpful for people that are colorblind. That's an important point of the figure. And then it also describes some of the values in the figure.
So are there specific types of tasks that work exceptionally well with this system, and maybe things that don't work so well? And how have you gone about exploring this, and how could you further accommodate the challenging tasks that you have in mind?
So I really like that question that you just asked. Actually, we were testing it with some images about grocery shelf stores. And in this image, we can imagine a person trying to shop around. So they're at an aisle looking for a specific baking product. And then in here, you can see, we get a general idea of what the items are there, but this first description is too general. So I guess that would be one issue here.
And this is Shamsi. I'm just stepping in here. I want to read out loud what that section is that Ricky was explaining is too general. It says, the image shows a fully stocked grocery store shelf with a variety of food and drink items. And now I'm going to continue playing the video.
it doesn't give a good idea of what is actually there, so the user has to dig in deeper. And then, so here we can see that our user is interested in specifically knowing about cupcakes, and the person just wants to know, like, on which side of the shelf is. And we can see that the application actually responds the wrong answer. It's saying that the cupcakes are in the middle, when in fact, if we look at the image, which I'm actually going to zoom in for a moment here, we can see that the cupcakes are to the left side of the shelf. So with things like position, it's not very good at identifying those kind of things. And yeah, we're also running this demo to learn more about what things they are bad.
All right, fantastic. So that's the clip that we wanted to share for the first tool. And now we're going to move on over to this second tool, and we're going to play 2 short sections. So I'll be playing a little bit and then returning and playing a little bit more. All right, I'm going to go full screen.
So the create framework is used to write an effective prompt into a chatbot AI, and these are the elements needed to consider for the prompt.
The reason we use the create framework is currently engaging with generative AI without a structured method could result into a varying degree of accuracy and also the quality of output. So it could be a deterrent from using generative AI effectively if it is not used with a structure. And it's intuitive once it's followed. I call it the grandmother protocol, which is imagine grandmother asking you to bring something from the kitchen. They would give you a very detailed instructions of what to do and where to go and how to pick it and how to prepare it. So generative AI would benefit very much from a good set of detailed instructions.
So that gives us a little bit of an idea of the create framework that they're going to be using in this next section. Let's see, we're going to here.
So what is ClickUp?
Oh,
ClickUp is an
dear.
all-in-one productivity software.
Let's get through this ad.
I'm uploading the first image of the behavior over time graph, and I will copy and paste the prompt. And from this, I will submit it and wait for the AI to respond. Okay, so here is the full description. From the whole description, it gives a brief description at the top, and it gives each detailed element that we put into the prompt. It goes on and gives us paragraphs of what's happening.
But I think it's able to distinguish that the emotional or atmospheric elements, that the graph is strictly informational. It doesn't convey any emotional or atmospheric elements. However, because of its understanding of system dynamics, it also gave, like the graph demonstrates a system feedback loop through the interaction of population, births, and deaths. So it's not just a description, as Ali said. It dips into the understanding of the topic. So it links this behavior over time graph to what is the system structure. So it has more context, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's great that it explains it as an expert of system dynamics, the way we prompted it, where like in real life, there would be limited system dynamics experts who will be able to describe the image itself. So that's really interesting.
Those were the demo clips that we wanted to share as a foundation for the panel discussion that's coming next. We've actually reached our first break time. So we're going to break for 5 minutes. And when we return, we will have our panel discussion. And if you'd like to take a look at those technical demonstrations over the break, we did post the links in the chat. See everyone in 5. Great, so let's get started with some of the questions that came in ahead of time that directly address the tools that we just got a little bit of a glimpse of in those 2 clips. I'm going to start with a question for Allie. This question is, your project is really useful. As an undergraduate, I didn't do anything useful. How did this project focused on making science more accessible come about?
Yes, so as I've progressed through my major in integrated science and technology, I've developed a sense of where my skills could be applied meaningfully. And the combination of the technical skills and just the desire to solve real world problems has steered me to a project that has a very meaningful impact. And I came about this project from Raafat, who presented it to our capstone class, and it sparked an interest in making these systems thinking representations accessible to all users.
Thanks so much for that, Allie.
Yes.
My next question is for Ricky. What sparked your interest in using AI for accessibility, and how did this particular research project take shape?
Yes, so as I've progressed through my major in integrated science and technology, I've developed a sense of where my skills could be applied meaningfully. And the combination of the technical skills and just the desire to solve real world problems has steered me to a project that has a very meaningful impact. And I came about this project from Raafat, who presented it to our capstone class, and it sparked an interest in making these systems thinking representations accessible to all users.
Thanks so much for that, Allie.
Yes.
My next question is for Ricky. What sparked your interest in using AI for accessibility, and how did this particular research project take shape?
Thank you for that question. And I think we should pin Allie to, oh, thank you. Great. So what sparked my interest in AI and accessibility? Well, I became interested in the intersection of AI and accessibility because I believe that it has a tremendous amount of potential, both short-term and long-term, to support blind and low vision people's lives. Arwa already said it multiple times. It is a tool that is genuinely changing people's lives. And me, as a technically driven researcher, I believe that AI can also scale well. It can scale well while also providing use for critical daily needs, such as what we have seen in the demos. My tool, it can describe scenes to people to find objects during their shopping trips or identify things. And then in Allie's case, Raafat and Allie's case, they showed how their tool can be used in STEM education to describe system thinking diagrams, and which honestly I think 3 years ago, 2 years ago, this would have been completely impossible. And then how did, my research take shape? So again, I believe in the scalability and power of AI to provide general support to blind and low vision people. And as we know, one of the biggest challenges for blind and low vision people is accessing information that is contained in a visual manner that requires vision to access it. And so with the help of my advisor, Professor Shiri Asenkot, and my lab colleague, Jasmine Collins, and a blind researcher from Google, Cindy Bennett, I think she's here. I think I saw her name. We recently published a paper where we investigated how well and for what reasons are blind and low vision people using AI to access visual information. And from what we have seen from that research is, yes, the world is generally moving in a more accessible direction, not only like as a society, but also the tools that we are making. But there still remains a huge gap between the visual information that blind and low vision people are missing and what sighted people can perceive on their daily lives. And so I am working towards bridging this gap through intelligent systems.
Thanks so much for that, Ricky. The next question is for Arwa. Arwa, as you know, there's so many debates happening right now around AI. Is it helping? Is it harming? Is it all just hype? What would you like AI skeptics to keep in mind?
I want people to appreciate how useful AI can be if it's developed responsibly. AI is really being used. I use it in my day-to-day life at the moment. It's enabling me to study a subject that is really visual, like AI and data science. And so AI skeptics can bear in mind that people can really benefit from it and change their lives for the better instead of just being worried of this technology.
Thanks for sharing that perspective. The next question, it's the same question for both Thijs and Raafat, and maybe Thijs first and then Raafat. Could you share with us what you think each of these tools, so the tool that you worked on, what is it good at? What is it bad at? What do you think is next? And we'll go with Thijs first.
All right, thank you so much for that question. Yeah, I think, as you saw in the demo, there are a lot of really great things about the tool that Ricky has been developing, right? Like bringing a sense of what is going on around in the world to people who are like blind and low vision, who are trying to make sense of the world around them, is a critically sort of use case and works really well. And I think what was particularly exciting about like what Ricky has been doing is also not just building the tool and demonstrating that it works, but also finding really interesting new use cases that we had never anticipated before, where, giving these tools to people and actually trying it out and learning from their real experience really taught us some much deeper levels of like, the role of these tools in their life and how it can really sort of impact both like sort of mission critical scenarios, like the example where it's like you're in the supermarket, you're trying to figure out like, what on earth you're buying, what you have in your hands, but also like kind of scenarios where like the people were trying to start to play sort of games with the tool, like to figure out like sort of to win bets and stuff like that. So there was a lot of like sort of additional fun use cases that came up that we had never anticipated, but it really kind of added quality of life for the people who are using these tools. And obviously, the bad points, like Ricky actually was very honest in his demo in that sense, right? Showing that like, yes, the tools are, the AI tools that we're building on are very good at sort of generally detecting content, but like they don't really have a perspective of the intention of our user, right? If I go into a supermarket, I might be there just looking at shelves, but I might be there looking for how to make a cupcake, right? And if I'm there looking for how to make a cupcake, my experience is very different. I look differently. I understand things differently. And the current way we're using these AI tools is very sort of agnostic to that. So it sort of lacks that perspective in how to make sense of the world. So like a better detail to context and better understanding of the user intention is, you know, one really big factor to kind of move forwards in how these tools can change the way we're working. And I think that also kind of connects a little bit to the future, right? Like what I think is really cool with the tool that we have right now, it's a tool that actually works, and we we have people using it. And so like the deploying it and seeing like how use cases emerge over time and how actually people start to redesign, or not really redesign, but like rethink sort of decisions in their day-to-day life because they have the tools available to them right now, is so incredibly interesting to see. So I think there's a lot we can learn, both from how to build better AI so that we kind of better understand context, but also from like how to build better tools in general to enrich the life of people and of people who are using these. And how to kind of create that context sensitivity, not just better tools, but also like kind of better sensitive tools to the use case that we're looking for. And so Ricky's doing great work in continuing on that, and I'm very excited to see the follow-up analysis that is coming out of this.
Thanks so much, Thijs. Ricky, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, sure. I guess one another thing I would add for the future, and I think that this will also affect, it will influence how we all interact with the world too. One really critical need that blind and low vision people want to see with these tools is the form factor. So also, how do we move from, you know, using these contractions or like having the phone out in the hand? How can we move on to a more naturalistic way of interacting with my data directly, or interacting directly with the world that is around me? So I would say that that's another really important thing that we need to consider moving forward, and consider other potential you know, situations that may happen at the same time. So let's say that we're creating some sort of like smart agent with smart glasses. Some people might have hearing aids, and we have to also think about, okay, how do we make these smart glasses to have they're comfortable, but also that they work well for someone that might have a hearing aid, and then, you know, take into account the variety of conditions.
Thanks so much for that insight. Let's turn to Raafat with the same question. And Raafat, you probably remember the question, but my memory is not that good, so I'm going to read it out loud again. The question is, what is the tool that you've been working on with Allie? What is it good at? What is it bad at? And what do you think is next? And Allie, just a heads up, we'll go to you after Raafat to see what you would like to add.
So in our case, we started with a very specific application compared to the case of Ricky and Thijs. So we just focused on just one thing. But I think the tool, which has been a mix of ChatGPT-4, Copilot, and the Google tool Gemini, it actually took me at least into a social experience, because I get to know Arwa, collaborate with Allie, and also a gentleman, his name is Scott Frotman, who developed a System Dynamics GPT. So it's actually, I thought it's going to be just me and Allie and ChatGPT, but it's actually created a group of people to meet and talk and work together, and also brought us to here to this fantastic forum. What it's good at, I think we are just exploring, honestly, and we are being surprised at every step of the way. Things that we did not envision, and we're just seeing things develop over time, and it also expanding our view and interests. So we started thinking about the developing it for the visually impaired, which came from my experience trying to do some to write descriptions of images, and I was trying to do this very, very hard, and it took me time, and it was not good. And when the tool came, I was like, you know what? probably because I'm lazy and I wanted, and I think, but I also determined to do this. However, because our objective is to have the tool also that we can dictate the models to that AI tool, and then it can build it. So that's one way of recognition, but we want to also do it the other way around. It also opened up the door to make the text accessible for a different type of disability, like for learners with the autism spectrum, who would understand written information in a different way compared to somebody who is neurotypical. So it's just an exciting ride. And, you know, we are just happy about going and exploring. But because I want also to do what is it bad at, which I probably alluded to in the video. If it is not used with a structure, then you probably get results that not satisfy what you are looking for. And maybe people will give up or start joking about AI. And I think there is some unfairness there when you joke about AI, because if you don't know how to use it, but to use it, it's very simple. And I think that's one of the messages we want to convey in this talk.
Thanks for that, Raafat. Allie, is there anything that you would add to that?
Yeah. So from my experience, this our project has been very surprising with what it has given us and how the ChatGPT and other AI chatbots produce the message. I think we have a good spot right now, but there's always room for improvement, and we are looking for improving with going the reverse way and prompting it and then it making the image for you. So right now, I wouldn't say there's one specific bad thing about our tool, but we definitely have a lot of room for improvement for this next school year.
That's exciting. You have to share those updates with us. So there are some questions coming in that are very specific about each tool. I was hoping we could tackle some of those before we take our second break, and then we'll come back for more questions and answers. One of these questions is for Ricky. Which platform did you use to build this API? Are you using OpenAI or something else?
Sorry, I'm trying to see the unmute button.
Yeah.
So I think Taina, I hope I am pronouncing your name correctly. I think Taina asked this question. So throughout the years, we have used different APIs. For the paper that we published, we use Microsoft Azure's recognition API, because in that project, we were trying to make the tool work as closely as possible to Seeing AI. So what is Seeing AI? Seeing AI is an application that most blind and low vision folks are familiar with, and it's an application that describes visual information to them with their phone. And so that's why we used that API at that time. And now we're trying to use more advanced models. For this project, we're using the OpenAI API with some modifications to it. And in general, in the lab, we have seen that the OpenAI API is the best one in terms of getting consistent responses and general like factual information about abstract situations correctly. Like any other AI, it probably makes mistakes about historical facts or like news, but here we're more interested in things about the scene, and in the lab, the OpenAI API has worked well for us, with obviously some modifications to it, and then some prompting like the one that Allie and Raafat have come up with.
Great, thank you so much. A question for Allie and Raafat. How was the process of developing the prompt, and is it available anywhere?
Do you want to take that, Allie?
Yes. So I did post in the Q&A the PDF that we used. It's the Create framework prompt by Briss. I think Briss, yes. And we've used that to go step by step in the details to ask for very specific outputs we want. And by that, we added the detailed elements, the context we wanted to use, and just extra addings to have the GBT give us the best possible answer for the diagram we put in.
Great, thanks.
Ali, can I ask a follow-up question on that? I was really curious from the way you use that framework, which is like more a generic framework for prompt design, right? Are there now now you've been working with like specific people with accessibility needs. Are there like modifications that you would make to the prompts, or like that you could make to the prompts that would tease out more relevant details?
Yes. Yes, we start off actually with just saying you are the expert in systems dynamics and systems thinking. So just by doing that, the AI automatically knows that our goal is for this. And then with it in that, we also add to everything is accessible from ADA.
Yeah, I think your internet connectivity might be going in and out a little bit, Allie. So I'm not sure we caught all of that. Was that clear to you, Thijs? No problem. Nothing we can do about our internet. This is the joys of modern technology.
I can maybe reiterate is that yes, the prompt was changed, and one thing about the journey is that we started with Google Gemini because at that time we did not have a subscription to ChatGPT-4, so it did not have the possibility of uploading images if you use the free version. So we used Gemini, but then Gemini struggled with the text description. So we took some of the prompts and went to ChatGPT to refine the text. And then Ali tried also Copilot, which turned out to be a very good, provided the best output at that time. And then we were able to get funding and use ChatGPT-4. Then we shifted there. So it has been a journey going in between and tweaking the prompt until we were able to get something that provide us with exactly what we needed. But I must say the tweaking was on the sides, on the like fine tuning, but not on the accuracy, but rather the like getting it to a certain number of characters or without compromising the quality of the description. ChatGPT-4 and Copilot proved to be the best at their game at that time, which, you know, whatever we say now or today might be completely changed by the time we go back and try it. So you guys will be part of the journey.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting observation. Also across both projects, right? Like trying different frameworks and different tools and exploring how they work differently. I think is like, it is right now for sure part of the workflow of working with AI, right? Like it's like there's not one answer, like you will adjust your answer to the different frameworks and they have their strengths and weaknesses. So I find that very interesting. Like this is probably part of the mindset you have to adopt when you're kind of starting to work with these AI tools, right? It's not like it's different from how we're used to do software engineering, where it's like I use this framework and I will just use that library and that specific dependency and I'm going to make it work. And now you have to adopt a more flexible mindset, which I think is very interesting to see.
I see a very parallel experience, you know, in the 1990s when the internet started and the browsers. I used to try Alta Vista, Yahoo, Netscape, and then it was just an Lycos, and we have been always like trading tips with colleagues, which search engine does the best. And so I'm seeing this trying of different tools and how to write a search prompt is very, very analogous to writing a prompt for AI. For those who are like 90s like facing that we're living during that era. So I think it's really the new tool to live with moving forward, if that makes sense.
Thanks so much for this interesting discussion and perspectives. We're going to take our second and last 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for more questions and more answers. And so for folks in the audience, you can use this time to post any questions that have come up for you to the Q&A panel. We'll be keeping an eye on that, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So see you folks in 5. So let's go to this question that's sort of a follow-up of the conversation that we were just having. How did you evaluate the quality of the output for different prompts? And if anybody feels like they really have an answer they would like to share for that, go ahead and jump in.
So I can start with my project, and then maybe Raafat and Allie can share their process too. So on our end, I am very fortunate to have collaborators with varying degrees of vision loss. So my professor, she's low vision, and she has a guide dog. And I've also had another collaborator who was completely blind. And with their help, we have been testing it in a variety of situations in their own daily lives. And it's just trial and error because this is a new technology. We don't know how these models necessarily how they're going to respond to new situations. We can assume that they will be able to describe things that they have seen before. But, well, as you all know, we have no idea we have a rough idea on what data has been used to train these models. But yeah, so that's our process. And that's why we're also conducting this research to find out, hey, is this prompt working well? Or, hey, blind and low vision people have found out that asking the question in this way is better. And then we can do something like the create framework, but for this different use case where people can structure the visual question in a more consistent way to get what they need in more efficiently. Yeah.
Thanks, Ricky. Anybody else have anything to share on that question on evaluating?
I think in our case, it was easier in terms of like, because we know the subject, so we were able to judge whether the responses do they make sense or they don't. That said, that's our perspective, but we need a visually impaired to experience it, and that's what Arwa did when we worked with her. Now, that said, she also suggested, and that we test this with a range of visually impaired learners of the field. But that's our prototype. That's our testing cycle so far.
Yeah,
Allie,
maybe
want to add something? Yeah.
maybe interesting to add to this. Like, I think like when we're talking about these projects, right? Like we sort of like classify people with different types of disabilities as like one cluster of users, but the variety is enormous. And it's like designing an interface to kind of deal with some of that variety is so important to consider. And that's like both on interface design and prompt design itself, right? Like kind of whether the content makes sense for this range of users. I was actually yesterday running a series of interviews with people with speech disabilities. And there we kind of came across sort of the same the huge variety of forms of speech disabilities that actually kind of strongly impact like not only like what matters in terms of like, you know, what your AI tool creates, but also like sort of what can you even kind of consider as like important in terms of like efficiency or like control over the prompts that you're generating. And so I think that is something to really keep in the back of our minds when we're like talking about any of these projects. Like there is like this, how well does it sort of technically perform, and then how useful is it actually to the different types of users that we're like targeting with these tools. It also relates a little bit to Jonathan's question in the Q&A about like whether we can test or prove that documents are accessible, right? It's like, I think Igor's answer to that, which is like essentially, you know, there's such a big variety of people, and the only real way to really find out is actually kind of doing user studies and bringing in a reasonably representative group of people to kind of understand that, because there is as many variations in sort of disability as there is in, or accessibility as there is in people, right? Like it's like you will not get it right in general. You will probably get it right for specific cases, and that's the only way to kind of really fairly assess whether a document is accessible, right? Or prompt.
Thanks for sharing those perspectives. I wanted to turn to Arwa for a very interesting question that's come in that touches on a topic that you brought up, Arwa, earlier. They are asking, how are you dealing with problems regarding data equity and the problem that LLMs trained on the web could contain ableist interpretations of the world? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think representation is key. As long as we, as disabled people, represent ourselves on the internet, large language models have no right to discriminate us. So that would be my answer to this question.
I'm wondering if the other panelists, as active creators of these tools, like how does this play into your thinking, and how do you go about tackling such a sticky question?
So in our end, we are tackling it in a very direct manner. So fortunately, we, through, you know, starting to work in this research agenda, this first originated when I started my PhD and also during my time doing an internship here at Cornell. We actually tried to just use Seeing AI directly and then collect data from participants sending us emails about like, hey, I used it for this was the image, this is what happened. But that process was a little bit too cumbersome for the user to consistently send us data every day. So going back to what I said before, we want to know daily use because those are the critical use cases. And so through that learning experience, we figured out, hey, we need to collect data directly ourselves and then create data sets of our own, because blind and low vision people are producing different kinds of images. They're asking different kinds of questions. So that's how we're tackling this problem. We're collecting data, we are labeling it, and then we are, you know, providing this data for other researchers and, you know, industry leaders to analyze it or use it to train their own models to understand what are the expectations and what are the questions that they're asking.
Thanks, Ricky. Rafa or Allie, did this type of question come up during your process as well?
Could you repeat the question, please? Also?
Yeah, absolutely. How are you dealing with problems regarding data equity and the problem that LLMs trained on the web could contain ableist interpretations of the world?
Allie, do you want to say something about this?
I'm trying to think of an answer right now, sorry.
Which reflects probably that we did not think, to be quite honest. It did not cross our mind. We're just trying to get a solution to something forward. And these things came later on, but yeah, that's my perspective. I don't know if you, Ali, recollect anything from your experience.
I think I agree with you. We just started we started the project this past spring semester, so we still have a whole nother year to fine tune and work out every possibility. And this is going to be our semester where we can do more trials and have more visually impaired individuals help us learn and improve our tool.
Let's move on to an rather open-ended question. This is a really good one. If the panelists could wish for one advancement to accelerate their work, so think about that, what would it be? And they offered a small menu here. New data sets, better models, well-defined tasks, or something else?
So I think I answered that question before, but I can repeat what I said. I answered in the chat, but I can mention there. So I mentioned two things. So I think you said one. I'm greedy, I guess. I want two. The first one would be more transparency regarding the system prompt. So basically the prompt that gives the baseline personality to the model, let's put it that way. And then a bit more information on how the model has been trained, not in general terms like, hey, we collected data from the internet with images and their label, and now it knows everything. No, like I want to know, did you grab them and then you had people ask specific questions, and can you give me a sample of those questions? This would give us a better idea on how to prompt these models for our specific use cases, right? And then the second thing is for these big companies that are basically in almost full control of these models. So for example, OpenAI or Perplexity or Google, Facebook, to offer mini research grants so that people can freely access their most advanced models and try them out for their specific use cases. Because yes, there are some open source models that can work as, you know, a first step, that like you can dip your toe into them. But unfortunately, if you look at the benchmarks on how this model performs, it is clear that for now, these bigger these companies that are for profit, that have closed source models, they work better. They work better, and it would be useful to know more about them and get more access to them.
Thanks for that, Ricky. Wondering if the other panelists have something that they are wishing for, an advancement to accelerate your work.
Yes, for us, I would probably say that we could probably advance to more complex models to put into our into the chatbot, so that can help us actually understand if complex models would be able to work, and then from that would be if we could be able to put it into a learning software like Canvas to see if that would help with visually impaired users or other people's with accessibility needs.
I would second some of what Ricky said about sort of more experimentation and making it easier to kind of explore what these models do and how they work. I am also a person who is very worried about sort of the environmental future of the planet. So models that would be more efficient would be something that I would really, really appreciate. Like I feel every time I'm using AI tools, I feel a little bit guilty somewhere. It's just like, oh no, what did I just do to the planet? If I know efficiency is an important factor that people are working on, but like that would be something that I would dream of, like to kind of like take that away and then making experimentation even more accessible, because you know the cost is just essentially kind of diminished at that point.
I think from my side and continuing the line of thinking from Thijs about the use of the hardware and the power. And I hope for more innovation to have lower energy consumption. I think the fact that we're using GPUs is coincidental. It's not designed. It's just this processing power, and I think there will be innovation in terms of using processors that would use less power, and I think there is something coming. I also would like to see more in open source advancement, as also Ricky mentioned, because with accessibility is lowering the barrier, and I hope it become something commoditized. Like we don't earn through just accessing these tools, but rather than providing like accessible interfaces and straightforward to use, because currently we're still going through steps, and I don't have an answer for this. But I wish that we make the other side more accessible as well, especially with people who have low internet connections and so on. Working with open source in some organizations as well would make it more accessible to others.
If I were to answer this question, I would go from an end user point of view. I would wish for a more sleek, advanced hardware that is easy to use and compatible with all of the software. I think that the software is really advanced. However, we lack advanced hardware. So in order to use these tools, we need to have our phone pointing at the world and the environment that we want to be described. So instead of that, a really sleek pair of glasses that has the power of processing the software would be really handy. So I would wish for a more advanced hardware.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we said about the future. Like the form factor is really important, and like maybe smart glasses, or maybe something that is not even glasses but is aware of the environment, and then making it less cumbersome. Yes, making it more advanced.
It's wonderful. There's a question that's come in that is very specific to academia, and it might be particularly relevant for Raafat and Allie's tool, but don't let me make any assumptions as if this is relevant for both tools. Please jump in. So the question is, are the panelists considering working with scholarly publishing platforms to develop plugins that increase accessibility for blind and low vision users?
That's a very interesting suggestion. We haven't thought about this.
We have no, but we are open to looking into it.
That's a call for collaboration.
Yeah, so I would say that the tool that we are creating right now, it is not developed in JavaScript, which I think would be the most useful programming language. I think someone asked about that too. I would say that the best two tools to create systems that are more accessible in general would be, programming languages that can generate web content, basically. So the two kings of that are JavaScript and Python. And so the tool that we made is made in Swift, so it's for iOS, mainly because blind and people with vision loss typically own iPhones. That's changing a little bit. More people are getting Android phone or Google phone, or they might have not a smartphone, but a only audio phone. But so collaborating with publishing platforms, we would definitely love to do it. That's why we are here, I guess, talking in this forum with the arXiv folks. And yeah, slowly but surely, when we find these more specific use cases or the kinds of diagrams that appear in different kinds of journals, I think that we could definitely try and do something about it, create a tool that can be like a companion when reading and going through the articles.
So I heard 2 calls for collaboration, and that both these teams are really open to learning and stretching in different directions.
I'm intrigued by Ricky's point about iPhones. Is that, from Arwa's perspective, is this the iOS is use is more for the visually impaired? Let's see.
I think there is a study that has been published that states this. I've read it somewhere, I'm pretty sure. So according to a research paper, most used phone is iPhone among visually impaired users.
Thank you. Thank you, Ricky and Arwa.
So we are nearing, we still have some time for some more questions, but we're nearing the end, and I did want to leave time for closing remarks, but I wanted to fit in this question first, which is a question just about the future. When it comes to accessibility, how do you hope to see AI being used in the future? And maybe we could just call on folks and go around. Thijs, would you start us off?
Absolutely. So I think in broad society, the way AI is currently being used is kind of a giant loss. Very sad to bring this news. Because like we're developing a lot of like very gimmicky sort of nice to have scenarios, right? Like we're like kind of like doing things like using AI to improve like how you do your homework, or like kind of placing people in images where they haven't been. It's like, why is that what we're doing? We're sort of like having really cool technology, but we're looking for use cases for it in general in society. Now, I think within the context of accessibility, this is a completely different beast, right? If you look at the work that Ricky and Ali are doing, they're really sort of like enabling new ways of interacting, new ways of making sense of the world. And so that is a contribution that is much, much bigger than these nice to have scenarios, right? These sort of like, oh, now I can put myself into an image. It's like, is that really what we need this technology for? Or why are we using so much energy and causing harm to like sort of privacy constraints to achieve that? But like when you see these use cases in accessibility, I think that mathematics sort of turns around, and it's actually there is an enormous potential. As I mentioned before, I'm working on people with speech disabilities right now, and it's like it's unbelievable how much of a change you can make by just kind of like bringing the right use of the tools to people to kind of like fully engage in expressive communication, or being part of like, taking the role in society that you deserve somehow. So I think there is like a huge amount of potential for AI research in accessibility. And I really hope that we are going to kind of spend in the next couple of, like maybe the next decade or so, more of our resources on those type of use cases and much less on like making my homework better. Like my students are already fantastic at cheating. They don't need to get better at that. But there are people who actually really benefit from this technology. And I think the work that we're seeing here is an incredibly important step in that direction.
Thanks, Thijs. What about you, Allie? How would you like to see AI being used in the future?
I hope to see the AI be integrated into educational softwares. So individuals with visual impairments can enhance their learning. And I also would hope to see ethical and responsible AI as a primary concern, and to develop AI that works for everyone and to make sure that it is ethical in the way we are using it.
Thanks for that. Ricky, what's your vision?
Yeah, so actually jumping on what Ali mentioned in terms of ethical development of AI and usage, I think one very important point that we have to take into consideration, and that is sometimes missing from the perspective of lawmakers or people in general that have never interacted with a blind or low vision person. There's many misconceptions about how much a blind and low vision person can be responsible for themselves. So I have had discussions with people that are leader in like these organizations. I'm not going to mention anyone specific here, but one huge problem is that AI is now actually able to do many things that are useful to them, but then we create this maybe artificial barriers on certain use cases just because there might be some quote unquote privacy concern, or maybe people are like, oh, this person is going to sue us, or they're going to say that, you know, oh, I got into this accident because the AI told me something inaccurate. That's not true. Like, there are blind and low vision people that are willing to accept the risk of something being mistaken, because the benefit that it brings them is disproportionate. So I think that that's like something really important to take into consideration, that will require thinking about how we can, you know, properly disclose how accurate the prompt might be, and then the person can make a decision as an adult and, you know, use it appropriately. I like to make the analogy with like a knife. Anyone can buy a knife. Like, we are not legislating who can buy a knife or not. So AI, we know what it can do bad, we know what it can do well, and yeah, that's basically what I wanted to communicate. And if anyone wants to try our application, you can contact me at reg258@cornell.edu, and you can shoot me any message or questions about my research. Would love to talk.
How about you, Raafat? What do you want to see in the future with AI?
I want to see the future of AI like along the same dimension that Ali talked about, is that it's self-adaptive in terms of which to detect the type of disability of the person who's using like a system, like a learning management system or even a publication, and, you know, tailor their response or their descriptions or their accessibility that suits them. Because we just talked about the diversity of personalities and the needs. So I hope that this is a starting point. And the second is that I'd like to see more of we imagining and then using the tools. Just keep imagining new dimension, new applications. What if we can do this? What if we can do that? Like, put our energy in imagining more options and more scenarios that we haven't thought about, and have the tool work with us. That's in a nutshell what I'm hoping for in the future.
Excellent. How about you, Arwa? When it comes to accessibility, where do you want to see AI?
I want to see AI being used in people's daily life to augment their capabilities. So from disabled people to elderly people. I want to also see laws that support people using these technologies. So like, for instance, self-driving cars are there, yet we don't have the laws that support the use of them. So in a nutshell, I want to see people using AI to augment their daily lives.
Thank you for that. So I just want to leave a tiny bit of time if you have some closing remarks that you haven't covered yet, or call to action, give us homework. Want to leave a little space for that. And there are some questions in the chat too about people's emails, which I know can be hard to catch giving them verbally. So if you wanted to share your email again, if you want folks to contact you that way, or type it into the Q&A or into the chat, you can do that. But yes, if you have any calls to action, please let us know. Let's just leave a couple minutes for that before we close.
I think there's one overarching theme that we've been bringing up multiple times across the different projects as well, which is like, go experiment, go try things out. Don't be too worried. There occasionally are, like, of course, bad consequences, and we have to be very focused on that. We should not forget about that. But like, if we stop like sort of trying to use the tools in different ways and for different accessibility scenarios, I think we're missing out on an enormous opportunity that we're having here.
Thanks, Thijs.
We would be very happy to hear from you. We have our contacts if you want to use the prompts and adapt them, and let us know if you discover something new. And we will also try to keep in touch by publishing a work in progress on ResearchGate. This is a space for us that we will be showing our work. If that makes sense. And thank you.
I added my link under one of the Q&A questions on my ResearchGate profile, which we will add the paper to. We have the capstone poster that I did last semester already on it. So it's just a poster that gives a little information about the rest of our project. But thank you for taking the time, and I really appreciate it.
I would say don't be afraid of AI, try it, use it, and also develop accessible solution using it. I've also left my email in the chat, so feel free to contact me for any questions. And thank you all for attending this session.
Thanks so much, everybody. My Zoom crashed, but it looks like everything just carried on without me, which is wonderful. And did we get through everybody's calls to action?
I think so, yeah.
Wonderful. So on behalf of arXiv, I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank the attendees. This was really, really enjoyable and informative. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you for moderating. You did a fantastic job, and thanks everybody for being here. Looking forward to more discussion.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you to all our volunteers as well. There's a lot of volunteers working in the background.
Thank you for them doing a great job on interpretation.
Yes,
So,
thank you so much.
thank you.
Well, I'm going to stay on a little bit longer just to make sure I save all the questions that have been asked, so we can continue that in the discussion as well. But let's call it officially ended.